the Women's Laboratory of Perspectives on Social Justice celebrates International Women's Month. The Perspectives on Social Justice season begins with a segment of the Women's Laboratory celebrating Women's History Month. Our featured month-long dialogue includes D&I professional Regis Marshall, attorney and Reverend Dr. E. Gail Anderson Holness, and daughter, Reverend Allie Holness Rowland, Georgia State Representative Camilla Jackson, and licensed professional counselor Jaketra Bryant. Our conversation this time focuses on the pandemic, mask mandates, and vaccinations.
Talk about it forever. I want us to move on, though, to what's going on in terms of the pandemic and its impacts. Now, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the American Academy of Pediatrics have been vocal in supporting pediatric COVID-19 vaccines. They've been stressing to parents that real-world data has demonstrated vaccines as being safe and effective at protecting children against severe disease, as well as against potential long-term consequences from the virus. However, with the relaxation of mask mandates across the country, many parents are hesitant about exposing their young school-aged children to the vaccines. So there are a few parents here tonight, and I'm interested in hearing, number one, how do you feel about the COVID-19 vaccine, the relaxation of mask mandates, and its effectiveness, the effectiveness of the vaccine for young children?
Well, I'd say this. I am definitely in favor of everyone getting vaccinated, for the virus. And I say this because, of history. I mean, children have always had to have vaccines to go to school. And so, I don't, and because because the entire COVID issue became politicized during the number 45 administration, that's why we are where we are today. I believe that had we had a different leadership, it would not have become as politicized as it is. And so, when you look at the fact that children have always had to have vaccines to go to school, and then also the military has always had to have vaccines to go on their different deployments all over the world, but because of the administration in which this pandemic occurred, it became politicized, and that's why we're where we are today. But I'm definitely in favor of it, and I will say this also in the state of Georgia, because I don't know how God worked this out, but for whatever reason, it seems like the governor of Georgia, the governor of Florida, and the governors of Texas all share the same brain. And they feel like this COVID thing is not real. And it's unfortunate because we already experienced what happened before when they tried to relax the mask mandates. And I'm just speaking from my experience in my children's schools. When they relaxed the mask mandates, because we had so many parents up in an uproar saying that they didn't want their child to be masked and they didn't want their child to be vaccinated. And so the schools caved in, and the school system caved in and said, okay, well, we'll relax the mask mandates. And then that wasn't good enough. And then they were like, okay, well, they're not required at all anymore. And this, of course, is coming from our governor, doing what he did. So anyway, but if you all think back a few months ago, we had the same trend happening. And what happened? We got a whole new variant, and we had to start. We didn't start from total scratch, but we took 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few months right now, especially with us going into allergy season and people getting all of the various sinus issues and sinus infections and things going on. So it's just unfortunate where we are. I mean, it would just behooved everyone and been most beneficial across the board for us to be extremely strict with vaccines and masks, and get us to a point where we are not just continuing to be in this unfortunate vicious cycle. Now add a war on top of that. So that's that's
Right,
just my perspective.
right.
I have a 3 week old. I have a 3 year old and a 5 year old. And my son just turned 5, so he's just now of age to be able to get the vaccine. I believe in vaccines. I was vaccinated, but I'm also a millennial, so I'm familiar with many families who are choosing to go a different route. And families who are choosing not to have their children vaccinated, not just from COVID-19, but nothing. People who are saying vaccines are not good for me. They don't really agree with them. They don't like them for a variety of reasons, um, and they're moving accordingly for them. And so, as a millennial, I do believe that everyone should have the right to choose. Absolutely. But for me and mine, we have the vaccine. But with this anti-masking thing, it's really bothering me personally because, as I said, I have children who, just based on standards, they can't be vaccinated. My 3 year old and 3 week old cannot be vaccinated. And so I think that it is so important, that we practice a high level of safety. So even though us as parents are vaccinated, the kids cannot be. And so all throughout COVID, all throughout this entire pandemic, and we're still in it, even though they've said we're moving towards an endemic. But we have seen people here in Georgia who did not want to wear the mask, who, have gotten in fights, who have shot people, all kinds of things have occurred that we have all watched in the media. And so to me, the mask is our new normal. No matter what the governor, the president, whomever says, we will be wearing masks. I remember years ago seeing people from Asian countries wearing masks as though it was, something that was foreign to us because we had no idea about these unseen, talk about living and walking in ignorance. We had no idea about these unseen bacterias that were just all around us. We weren't really talking about the environmental impact of air quality. And so I think that, that's just one thing, not even talking about, the diseases that are just floating around. And so our rates of flu were down. RSV was down. All of these things were down while we've worn these masks, while we've practiced the social distancing. And so I think that while the world is prepared to reintegrate, I am prepared to reintegrate. But the mask is my normal. Like this is for me now. Like this is me and my family. Like we have masks in the car. We have them. I put them in my purse, just like a diaper. They're in there. It's a part of the package when we go. And so I think that it is important for us to continue practicing safety because we don't know what's next. We set through several variants and they've been popping up and popping up and popping up. As soon as we think one is over, here's something else. And so I think that we are aware now, and awareness, it helps us to be able to truly uh, to walk through life with greater success. And so I think that now we know what we haven't seen before. And so, as I said, for me and mine, regardless of how many booster shots we get and how many vaccinations we get, I think that this mask thing is a norm for us now. And I just implore everyone to practice it because we have irresponsible leaders. I'm not going to name names, they are who they are. But we have irresponsible leaders who have not given us the tools and who have told us, oh, this is not real. And we have had to lean on our common senses. And so I think that this is going back to a common sense for us. We know what it is. We know what we're faced with. We know what has worked. We know what hasn't worked. Anti-masking hasn't worked. So I think that, I hear them. I respect what they're saying. I've listened to the experts as well. And with that, I think we just all need to really do what we can do to protect ourselves because we have millions of people who are not here because they believe that it was fake or they didn't have the proper tools. Well, we are not those people. We have the proper tools. And so in having the proper tools, I and my family will be moving forward accordingly and putting all of these things into practice. And as we reintegrate back into society, we're going to go back in stronger because we're going to put these things into practice. We're not just going to drop them, because today they decided. We talked about the financial dollars, everything's leading to money, so hey, I just, to anybody that hears us right now, do what's best for you and your family, and hold your head high unapologetically in doing so.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question: Have any of you? I'm from a family of national and international travelers. We don't just travel with our jobs and our or the church. We travel on our own. And for years, we have acknowledged and recognized the individuals from Asia and other countries that have been wearing masks for years. This isn't new to them. And the coronavirus is not a new disease. It has just blown up. But we've got to, as Reverend Alley has said, we've got to make those judgments, conscious decisions on our own. While the science tells us one thing, the politicians tell us another thing, but the reality is what we have to really deal with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And the reality is that, contrary to what the 45th person that was designated in the Oval Office said, this was real. this was a reality. It was not fake news.
And he had the vaccine. He got vaccinated.
Say that one more time.
He was vaccinated and didn't tell the country.
Surely was.
So after he was out of office.
Right. Right. And as an example to everybody else, he was vaccinated and he tested positive. You see?
Absolutely. He was at the party in the Rose Garden.
Exactly.
Where everybody else got contracted COVID as a result of his not cancer.
I know, right?
When you're a narcissist, you don't care about anybody.
You don't care, right? You do not care. That is the truth. That is the truth. Now, Jaketra, now you've been mighty quiet because, and you do a lot of family counseling. I just wonder, what do you tell families when they're talking about vaccinations and when they're in the military and they don't want to get vaccines? They don't want to. Is that something that you run into?
Well, all of our soldiers on post all were mandated to get vaccinated, so they didn't have a choice. So in order to be on post, so that came down the pipeline. So I think everyone on post and all enlisted all had to be vaccinated. So they didn't give them any type of choice at all. So I think that's something also to be for a question. It's like, they're all these things that are coming down the pipeline that are safety issues. So it's no doubt that COVID is not killing people. But I think when things like this are happening, I think sometimes we forget the micro level of issues. And I think the micro level of issues is our mental health, right? So even when y'all were mentioning about Ukraine, so this micro level talks about the equity injustice issues that we were talking about earlier. So when she was mentioning about the food and corn and everything like that, micro level, that's our equity issues. That's where we look at the marginalized populations who literally have to decide how am I going to eat? Where am I going to eat this from? And then you have this soldier that has to go and be obedient to their leadership about vaccination, or they're going to risk feeding their homes, or all that job jeopardy. All those things are ongoing systematic issues that play a role into all these big macro things happening around the world, like gas and wars and stuff like that. And I think sometimes we forget that literally the everyday situations that really get people in the uproar. And that's where you have that fight or flight response. That's where you have those fights at gas stations. That's where you have those fights in grocery stores over bread. And I think sometimes we forget those little small things that make a difference inside of our homes, where people literally are man, how am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to do I even get to go to work today because we're shut down again? Or if I don't get vaccinated, or if my kid is sick, and these things that are ongoing systematic issues that really play a role into like, you know, everything like that we're talking about that's going on. And so those are the things that like I deal with all the time. So I don't have too many discussions about like vaccinations because we're worried about like, hey, am I going to have food? We have food insecurity happening on our posts. We have like food insecurity happening in our communities, our neighborhoods. And so those are our issues. And so like that's something that's pretty real. Like the government put down a mandate about looking out for signs on food insecurity. Literally, like, where is our food coming from? And so like
So my question is, I know that it was mandated for the soldiers, but was it also, I mean, to get the vaccine, but was it also mandated for the families also?
No, it wasn't. Only if you are going to come on post. So I don't work on post. I work at a school like offsite. And so our agency, it came down from the Department of Defense. So everything under the governmental like stuff came down there, but they didn't mandate it for families or children. I think it was kind of then up to like the soldiers to decide like, hey, are we going to have our families? So I don't even know how many kids at our school may be vaccinated, maybe not be. I know they'll leave for a moment, and we had a huge flux of positives that came through right after Christmas, but no other discussions ever came back as to like, hey, like, was it related to they were unvaccinated or vaccinated? It was more so like, you know, hey, we expected this high volume due to the holidays, and so we're gonna like take other precautions here. So we've had very strict little movement like on our post in Fort Bennett and then in our schools. So like the kids don't even go to the cafeteria. They sit in their classrooms all day in this little bubble.
Everything that's going on in our culture right now is a justice issue. From food insecurity to voter registration, the right to vote, to diversity and inclusion, to what's going on across the pond and how it's going to affect us in the long run. But on that note, we're gonna end our show, and I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, and thank you very much. And so on that note, we're gonna say good night.
Welcome to Perspectives On, where we're giving the world a voice. We are a faith-based social justice forum where individuals give their perspectives on various topics. It's an opportunity to express their viewpoint, their stance, and their angle on justice issues affecting the community and globally. Each episode features guests presenting their perspective on things like climate change, the church, urban farming, and food insecurity, all through a unique faith lens. Come check us out. Give us your perspective.